All right, hello everybody. Friday afternoon, Facebook Live Friday. I'll get to the reason why I'm wearing red and black in just a moment. Dave Baker.
Now I figured it out.
Now you got it.
I have.
Dave Baker, Brian Milam with you, and it's been a tough week. Got a little tougher today for a lot of people, and then tomorrow UK basketball. UK ladies played last night. They lost. Eastern lost on a 57, 58-footer.
What about that?
It's been a tough week all the way around, but let's get into basketball first before we get into everything else. And tomorrow it's Kentucky and Vanderbilt in Memorial Gym, and it's my favorite place to go to. The atmosphere is different. It's unique. It's special. It's a 72-year-old building, and
guess what else they always have?
What's that?
The best national anthems.
Well, you would think they have to.
Because you're right, they got a big pool to choose from down in Nashville.
Yeah, they
right?
Walk about 7 blocks to get to where they have to be. But it's Kentucky and Vandy. You've seen some strange things happen down there over the decades. Wow. And Chris Bailey's over here talking about being a Bengals guy. Who's a Bengals guy?
I don't think they're playing this weekend, are they?
Last time I checked.
I think it's actually the Bills and the Chiefs right here on WKYT at 6:30 on Sunday.
Heard of them.
I don't think the Bengals are going to be there. Sorry.
That was funny. But Kentucky and Vandy from Nashville.
Barry Goheen ain't walking through that door.
Thank heavens, because you talk about a guy who was known for hitting 50-footers, 60-footers.
Scott Droud,
Phil Cox. Oh, look out.
Look out. What about Will Purdue?
Will Purdue, the largest foot I've ever seen of any human being.
Was the SEC Athlete of the Year. And I believe he has either 6 or 7 NBA championship rings.
Oh, well, wouldn't doubt it.
I mean, because he got those ones with the Bulls and Michael, and then he goes to San Antonio.
Good day at the office.
Let's go.
Yeah, big shot Bob Orry has got a lot in the NBA. But weird things have happened there.
Yes.
Kentucky has not lost in Nashville at Memorial Gym since 2016, if memory serves.
That's weird in and of itself.
Yeah, because I was there for that last one, and it was a head shaker. And UK is favored tomorrow, should win, but Vandy's coming off a huge win where they held off Tennessee in the final moment. Second
straight sellout that they've got at Memorial Gymnasium. They sold it out for Tennessee last week. They say it's a sellout tomorrow. Huge game for them. When Kentucky's been good, they've been really good. I think they've been gritty all year. But when they've been off, they've been off a little bit. And so, I just checked a second ago. I don't think the first SEC student athlete availability report is due until 8 o'clock tonight. So we know that Andrew Carr has been living on that availability report. And it's probably imperative in a situation like this for him to be healthy, for the Cats to go down there and be able to get a win.
You could tell against Alabama he did not. You could tell he was struggling a little bit. And especially for taller guys, they have a lot more spine, a lot more just everything in the back, because they're also getting pounded on in the paint. They're getting the elbow here. They're getting this. They're falling to the floor. When Amari Williams had that dunk against Alabama late in the game and he crashed to the I thought, oh my gosh, and this is a team not deep in that area. No. Guard play, one guard goes out, somebody else. But if Amari was to really get banged up, that leaves Brandon Garrison to do a lot of the heavy lifting of the true true center position.
Sure, who has played well but has not been called upon to do that. That's the reason golfers, sometimes really short guys, are such good golfers, because there's less to move and
to get
and to get lined up and everything. But like you said, Mark Pope said the other day, backs and big guys, they just go together.
Yeah.
Because there's so many different moving parts, and like you said, there are so many different ways that they get twisted and pushed. And, it's just very physical.
Good thing for him he doesn't weigh another 50 or 60 pounds, because then you've got that to weigh down on your back as well. So what do you think about Vandy? When we look at them, again, it's a good ball club. They're not world beaters, even though they beat Tennessee. They got up on Tennessee after a kind of a slow start and then got up double digits, and you thought they're going to pound them and put them away. Had to hold off a late charge at the wire from the Vols, but a team that likes to shoot it, but they're smaller. Kentucky should be able to obviously run with them, but maybe slow it down if they have to and
play a little defense too. So there's this graduate student, Chris Mannion. Is it Mannion?
Yeah, Manon with one of those little
those squiggly things. But it's not listed on the pronunciation guide, which is kind of weird. But anyway, he apparently blocked the game-winning block last week down there against Tennessee, and they're calling it the block heard round Broadway. Come on. Hey,
everybody's got to name something these
right?
days.
But this is a guy, Mark Byington, who's come in and done a nice job as coach. When he got the Vandy job, that opened things up for Preston Spradlin to get the JMU job in the whole deal of the dominoes falling and everything. So they played well. You know, they're 15-4.
Right.
Their 4 losses. They lost early to Drake. They lost at Mississippi State by a dozen, and then they lost by 9 at Missouri before Bama got them 103-87.
Yeah, 1 loss at home.
Yeah, that's it. And so, you know, you get a big crowd down there. They don't get it that much. Yeah. You know, it'll be interesting to see what happens. If Kentucky plays the way that they have played when they have played well, you know, I don't know that Vanderbilt can go ahead and keep up with them basket for basket.
Sure. You know, Kentucky, one thing about this ball club that has been somewhat, it's been consistent in some of these bigger games, a slow start. You think about Alabama,
right.
UK got behind early, and it's almost like a pitcher who needs to throw an inning or two in the bullpen to get loose. They need to break a sweat a little bit, and then they get going. You don't want to get, and again, and I'm not trying to be overly dramatic, but Vanderbilt plays much better at home than they do anywhere. And granted, most teams do, but when you are Vanderbilt, and no offense to Vandy, I love Vanderbilt in so many ways. I think it's a great place. Well, I don't have my Mr. T starter set on.
Wow.
But that team does pull some of that Memorial magic that has dripped from the rafters for years. And, golly, I remember Nazi Mohammed had that little runner, remember, about 27 years ago, and they escaped. But
I guess I actually started when CM was down there, again with Goheen and those guys and Scott Dowd and that bunch, and they started winning some games that they shouldn't have. And
Barry Goheen hit a shot to beat Louisville, I remember, in the late 80s. Barry Goheen played at Marshall County, way out west.
Yep, he did.
And then matriculated to Nashville. And he hit a shot to beat Louisville. And somehow WHAS-TV in Louisville was doing the game in Nashville because Dave Conrad was doing the play-by-play. Barry Goheen hits like a 40-footer, 50-footer at the buzzer, whatever it was. And they stormed the court. And somehow the camera guy takes a shot of CM Newton. Because Goheen had done it so often, he just stands there, and it was what we call in TV a God shot, where they are shooting on the floor and shooting up, the reverse selfie, if you know what I mean. And they show CM, he's just going,
right?
Like I'm not surprised, but I'm still surprised. And so we'll see if the Cats can take out that magic a little early and make that sellout crowd dissipate, because there still will be a lot of blue in there. It always is.
Yes, always in Nashville. And I would not think that it was sold out before the season began.
Yeah.
But, you know, blue, we've heard it before, said it, blue gets in, they'll get in. And it'll be interesting to see. Guys who've always played there, you talk about it being one of your favorite places, but over the years, the guys that I've worked with, and we both have, they say from a shooting standpoint, it's the best background that they play in. Because it's dark, they like it, the basket's there, they say the perspective is good. So rarely is it a game in Nashville where neither team shoots well.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens tomorrow. It's a 2:30 Eastern start on ESPN. Some news just happened earlier today. Ted Bassett, go through that. A gentleman known throughout thoroughbred racing, but certainly a Keeneland.
He's a giant of a guy in terms of sports and in terms of our Commonwealth. I mean, he was a Marine. Then he came back here to Kentucky. He became the commissioner of the Kentucky State Police in the 1960s. Happy Chandler appointed him when the Kentucky State Police was not the respected law enforcement entity that it is now. shaped that place up, and then he was tabbed to take over out at Keeneland, and he oversaw the real growth of Keeneland because he was able to combine not only the racing of it, but remember, Keeneland was a nonprofit track that was started for the benefit of Central Kentucky horsemen,
right?
The breeders. And so what they wanted right there was they wanted a place where they could showcase their breeding stock on the track. And so the thing just kind of exploded under Bassett. You know, that's when people from all over the world started coming. That's when the Japanese came in and started buying horses, and then you had Sheikh Maktoum. It became the place to go, thanks to Mr. Bassett and our great friend across the street, the late Anita Madden. They had the big parties, George Hamilton, Elizabeth Taylor.
Telly Savalas. Who loves you, kid?
Who loves you, baby? But I guess the big one, and Bassett had said in a story we did for Keeneland Magazine with him, that when Queen Elizabeth came here, that it was like the good housekeeping seal of approval, is what he said, and it became a happening sort of place. But Ted Bassett was 103 years old. He turned 103 back in October.
That's amazing.
He was still going to his office every day.
See, that's what we all should have strived to be.
But not before. Every day on the way to the office, he would stop and have breakfast at the track kitchen.
Yeah.
And if you've never been to the track kitchen, it is the best breakfast in Lexington. And it's open every day but Christmas Day. And it's just horsemen. I mean, it's just, you know, people are in there talking. And Mr. Bassett was a guy that he was absolutely comfortable with both king and commoner.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how he led out there. You know, he was able to bring in, you know, stars and people of influence and money, certainly. And then he was still able to relate to people who worked at the track, the people who worked on the track, the people that worked the concessions and things like that. He was involved in so many different projects in this community. He was involved in building 2 YMCAs. And I think I mentioned it first, but first and foremost, he was a Marine, and he was incredibly proud of his service. And one of the last projects he worked on was a project for the Sergeant Reckless statue out at the Kentucky Horse Park. And you're saying to yourself, Brian, who is this Sergeant Reckless?
Who is this Sergeant Reckless?
Okay, so Sergeant Reckless was a horse who served the Marines in the Korean War. Okay. Mongolian horse, a mare who was bought for $250. So during the Battle of Outpost Vegas in 1953, in one day, she made 51 trips.
Good Lord.
To carry ammunition up and to carry wounded down.
Isn't that something?
And the horse had lived to a ripe old age of 28. Ooh. And she's buried at Camp Pendleton. She got 2 Purple Hearts. Oh. But Mr. Bassett wanted to honor her, and they just built the statue out at the horse park. So I happened to meet the artist last year at the Derby, and you know, this is kind of in, I don't know how you can see it with my shaky hand, but it says Sergeant Reckless wasn't a horse, she was a Marine. And Mr. Bassett was as heavily involved in this project as he was any other. And that when Ted Bassett got behind something, this community got it done. Great man. He'll be missed, but what a legacy he leaves.
And for those of you watching live, we'll have a feature on him at 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock on WKYT. Unfortunately, we also lost another gentleman this week.
Same
and
kind of
the
guy.
reason I'm wearing the red and black, those people in Belfry said today for Friday, wear red for Philip Haywood, the winningest coach in football history, passing away earlier this week at the age of 73 due to a car crash last Saturday. 491 wins, 162 losses in a career which began as a head coach at Prestonsburg for 9 years, then to Belfry since 1984. His first assistant coaching position.
Yes, that's what I did.
I knew that's why you looked over here.
Yep.
With Roy Walton at Tate's Creek, and he actually stayed with Coach Walton in his house for a little while until he found his own residence, and then made his way to Meade County for a season or two. And then Prestonsburg comes calling, and he took over as head coach at the beautiful age of 25.
How about that?
You won't find any 25-year-olds these days being a head coach. And Philip Haywood died this week due to that car crash. 8 state championship victories, 14 state championship game appearances. This in 2015 when Belfry beat Lexington Catholic in Western Kentucky. It was over before anybody got off the bus. And I always thought if Philip Haywood ever looked like the mascot with that bristling black mustache. I mean, he even looks like the mascot, you know? But when he would walk out onto the field with his team, that's Doug Howard from the 2004. That's the final game at Vipperman Stadium. David Jones, the former Wildcat, number 5 right there. This was the final game at Vipperman Stadium, and the place is packed, as you will be able to tell.
Oh, sure.
And the people, there's a house above that press box where you can see people looking down as well. And just a beloved figure. And Teddy Painter in the background. We lost him a few months ago. The legends are leaving us, but to say that we were there with them for a little while. James Rowe, offensive line coach, he passed away about 5 years ago. And Steve Mickey, a gentleman you'll see here momentarily right there on the right, who also had that same great mustache. NASCAR guru Steve Mickey, he passed away about a decade ago or so. There will never be another Philip Haywood.
No.
I mean, not anywhere close to the wins and the titles. You may get one, but you're not getting both. But his impact in Belfry and Pike County was just, and throughout the state, was huge.
And just think about, you talk about wins and all that, and certainly it's part of the legacy, but the lives he was able to impact.
Oh, yeah.
Not only while he coached those kids, but the relationship that they had with him after they were through playing continued to have into their adult years. And, he was a guy that, absolutely led by example.
His wife, Linda, you'll see her momentarily in this video, met her when he was at Meade County. She was living in Louisville. And they were together since the early 70s.
Wow.
And so you're certainly, your heart goes out to her and the family, and certainly the community of Belfry, the players current and past. And when someone passes away, it is obviously just an incredible blow to anyone who knows these people. But when it is a coach who has done what he did,
oh, sure,
it goes to a completely new level. And in 2007, we've got a soundbite ready to go. In 2007, he won his 300th game a week before Philip Dudley Hilton won his 300th game. They both beat Sheldon Clark High School. But in 2007, I found this soundbite this week, and I thought this pretty much sums up Philip Haywood. Let's take that soundbite if we can.
If I got a minute just to say that I really thank God and my Lord Jesus for really allowing me just to be able to coach, I guess, as long as I have, and work with so many fine young people and so many fine coaches over the years, because we like to say our program's never about me, about not just me individually, about any of our players. It's about us. And it's just been a great privilege for me and a great blessing to be with all these guys for so long.
And he was with a head coach for 50 years. Wow. And I know he wanted to get to 500. I spoke to one of his former players who's a friend of mine that I covered 25 years ago. And he said,
stay in this business long enough, you have some of those.
I know. And he said, for such a humble gentleman, and gentleman is probably too tough of a word. He was better than that. He was angelic in so many ways. He wanted that 500. He was the 2013 USA Today National Coach of the Year. Took Belfry to 7 straight state championship games from 2010 to 2016. And he also developed one of the unique relationships. For so many years, Belfry would play Louisville Central.
Oh, yeah,
You've
that's
got
right.
Opposite ends of the spectrum.
Different
in
lifestyle.
Culture, lifestyle.
Demographics.
Everything. And he and Ty Scroggins became such good friends.
That's a great point.
And Philip went to Scroggins' funeral when he passed a couple of years ago. I think he passed due to COVID.
I think you're right.
And now I wonder, I would love to see how many people from Muhammad Ali Boulevard will make the trek to Pond Creek tomorrow for the visitation or Sunday for the funeral. But Philip Haywood, unbelievable man. I met him the first time September 4th. 1998, Belfry played at Whitesburg. And I thought, so this is Mr. Haywood. Okay. At that time, he had not become the state champion. He took 85 and 86 Belfry to the finals, but then went through a big drought where in 87 or 8, they lost to Highlands in the semifinals.
Right.
But then went through a huge drought where just could not get past the regional championship. Tim Couch did it to them, and Sheldon Clark upset them, and just, boy, it was just, what are we going to do? And then when it came, when you knock on that door enough and someone answers, and by gosh, 12 state championship games in 21 years.
Crazy, isn't it?
At a place like Belfry, who knows who they are. They realize they have an enrollment of 400 to 500 kids. They're not in a city area like Lexington can get, you can get 2,000 kids at a school, or Northern Kentucky or Louisville. He was true to his region, and so
very comfortable in his own skin.
Well, you knew what you're going to get.
Yeah.
He didn't have to put on, didn't have to do anything. He wrote 2 books, and I was reading one the other day, and he was talking about Jim DeVries, who was the Meade County coach when he was an assistant back then. And he said, Coach DeVries would always say, I wonder if these kids, how they're going to look at us and the job we did and how we will be perceived 10 or 15 years after they graduate.
Right.
Wait, and you never celebrate a death, but you celebrate a life. And tomorrow when Belfry rolls out the red carpet one final time for Philip Haywood at the high school, it might just be a capacity-packed facility.
You're right.
I know we've talked about passing and things like that, but when you have a man who's 103 and who did what Mr. Bassett did, and you have a gentleman like Mr. Haywood, you got to honor them and talk about them and brag on them.
They don't come along often, and that's the reason they are so revered and so celebrated. And I just go, and it's tough at times like this, but I just go back to that great philosopher, Dr. Seuss, who said, don't cry because it's over, but smile because it happened.
That's right. That's exactly
and there
right.
is so much that these 2 men have done to bring smiles to our faces in this difficult time.
And that's a good way to end this edition of Facebook Live Friday, the All Blue Preview, as we will get you set for UK and Vandy for tomorrow. We'll have a recap from Nashville on Saturday. For Dave Baker, I'm Brian Milam. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.